Or equity, very simple. Equity refers to fairness and justice, but that is not enough. Whereas equality just means providing the same to all, equity means recognizing that we do not all start from the same place and must acknowledge and make adjustments to the imbalances. The process is ongoing and requires us to identify and overcome intentional and unintentional barriers arising from bias or systemic structures. So because we are lawyers, and for lawyers to eat your food, you have to give them the law. So I'll give a constitutional basis before I move to my the gist of my discussion. The constitutional basis, a holistic approach of the right to health. Um, as we know, Article 43 is about the right to health, and especially when we're talking about COVID, I'd like to talk about the right to this. Look at that 43 2. A person shall not be denied emergency medical treatment, right? So the right to health has some segments which include availability, acceptability, and quality, but I'll want to look at accessibility the more, which is the economic affordability of health services, equality and non-discrimination in services. And I pose a question, is there a great injustice so great than the denial of patients medical treatment in the midst of a pandemic just because they cannot raise the money? And we know very well the social contract. The role of the state has two duties: to protect life and property. And in the midst of a pandemic, if a state fails to provide this duty of protecting life, that is an abdication of its core duty. I'll just move to a few cases which pronounce the right to health as a part of the right to life. So the right to health and life are all interrelated. In the case of PAO and others versus the Attorney General, that is the Kenyan case, the court held that the fundamental right to life, human dignity, and health as protected and envisaged by Article 26, 28, and 43 of the Constitution encompasses access to affordable and essential drugs and medicines. Now I'll move to the Supreme Court of India. I am doing the Supreme Court of India because it is also a developing nation like us, and so this mostly informs our work as lawyers. In the case of Bandua Mukti Morcha versus Union of India, the Supreme Court linked the right to health to the right to life, and then the state of Punjab and others versus Mohinder Singh Chawla, the apex court reaffirmed that the right to health is fundamental to the right to life and should be put on record that the government has a constitutional obligation to provide health services. Now, there's another picture, and these photos are going to form really my discussion. What's the difference between equality and equity? When we look at the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, we have the concept of equal protection. And that is the same principle that is in the Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which is also held in our Constitution, Article 27. So we have the right to equality, and then we have the right to equal protection. Under equal protection, we have the principle of equity, which means equals among equals. I remember my constitutional law professor, Professor Naresh, always emphasized on this, that equal protection means similar conditions and similar circumstances. Equals among equal. Then I'll refer to this case of John Kabui Mwai and others versus the National Examination Council and others. This is what the case, the court pronounced itself saying the Constitution's transformative agenda looks beyond merely guaranteeing abstract equality. All right? The abstract equality of if we are 10, everyone receives a shilling. There is a commitment to transform Kenya from a society based on socio-economic deprivation to one based on equal and equitable distribution of resource. Then I'll shift to the courts in India. In the St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, the court held that equal protection of the laws is now being read as a positive obligation on the states to ensure equal protection of laws by bringing in necessary social and economic changes so that everyone may enjoy equal protection of the laws and nobody is denied such protection. If the state leaves the existing inequalities untouched by its laws, it fails in its duty of providing equal protection to all persons. Now, having done the legal mambo jumbo, I'll move to the financial aspect. During the pandemic, contextualizing the financial situation. In fact, before I do that, let me go to the quantifying poverty in Kenya. If we look at the World Bank statistics in 2016, it was established that 35.5% of Kenya's population was living below the poverty line. That was in 2016, which is before the pandemic, 4 years, I think. And so people were living, this 35% live with below $1 a day. All right? So we have the context that 5% of people are poor and they don't really have money, and that's before the pandemic. And so when the pandemic hit, we can imagine what happened. And I think it could have been up to 50%. All right? So let's move to during the pandemic. We can look at what happened during the pandemic. One, we had the containment measures, which led to uncertainty surrounding the COVID, and which led to the closure of business. Most private and numerous public entities laid off their employees, especially hotels and the tourism sector, and even lecturers of Egerton, which I remember very well, they were slashed 40% of their salary, which I don't know up to now whether they have gotten it. And many Kenyans lost their jobs. That was during the pandemic. And I've quantified the poverty. Right. Now, I'll look at the cost of COVID treatment. So let's evaluate the cost of COVID treatment. All right. So it has been established that private hospitals demand, so you know very well that from last year up to this year, beginning of this year, the government was supporting COVID treatment. And then around April, March there, the government said it will no longer support COVID treatment. Now Kenyans have to foot their own bill. And then after that, we have private hospitals. Just been established that private hospitals ask a deposit before admitting a patient of a deposit of up to 600,000 shillings. And then public hospitals, this is Kenyatta Hospital, it was demanding a deposit of, even now I think, of 200,000 before they admit a COVID patient. And we have a research that was done by even our CAS of health, Mercy Mwangangi doctor. It was established that in a day, people with moderate COVID spend, apart from the deposit, 7,000. Those people with high cases of intensive care in the ICU, they spend up to 63,000 a day. And you know now, half of our population almost is living under $1 a day. Now, is this a death sentence, or is it God for us all and everyone for himself? So D, I will look at the effects or consequences